Hello, Fox Connecticut News. If you would please communicate with me here through YouTube with Real Communications, Fox Connecticut News, next to your location and next to WFSB and at WFSB, they ask me to pay conversations with themselves and with others as their collusions intercities through time with people sticking predicate acts, facts, with fake things in databases, fake ties, fake digital ties between people and the differences of foreign and domestic intelligence or interbranch family members. They're putting fake things in databases at these locations together. And as collusions increasingly there and at crime scenes and with the news at the same time to prevent voices unless they are collusion slash S. Increasingly, people involved with child prisons and adult prisons and the Connecticut corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices have been collusions on my street with people from a whole bunch of different areas and all along routes like Route 3 and Route 175 from the founding locations, right where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan and the founders behind James Madison and as James Madison to counter extort. I don't know if James Madison was there when they were counter extorting, but he had to counter extort right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. And they had to leave slavery entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies. And they communicated for us to understand about why and how. Everyone's speech was measured by a breaching method that had laws where there were internationally monitored conversations that were where each side sickly distinctly, but also sickly non distinctly had roles with the hyperforeign, with the slavery, with the black white collusions and the exceptions, all the same thing. The system's tactical terror from the species body of individual bodies and group differences and demonstration of how we discern that nature's system of true always, not denying the slave sequence shift. And as what is only increasing value, but also only increasing positive onto itself, where it is already like all bodies with relativity to positive and negative equally, but then where more and more positive is being made. But it is with Earth's a special difference in our own here forged as a quality of diffusion that is further positive onto an as its system hypernated pure, or it is forced away from here, leaf of Hades. This is more probably and practically having been because what ancient pantheism and the republic was about, because it was demonstrably led by the hyper invisible but not discernible. It was demonstrably led, therefore, by a way that came from before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced and no longer capable of affording discerned finite details simultaneously, the order of the finite, simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly with the group details and truth, nature of truth, because it would have shown because of the way it is only increasing value. Even if someone fakes motivations or screening motivations, we could discern through it. And that's relative because that's one of the motivations for where and how there is guilt recorded interbranch and intelligence tied to them and the difference of that just relative to how we have black people's whites of eyes and they're projected as the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. They're projected as nature's identity, communicating to us, teaching us about difference, about simultaneously, about some similarity, simultaneously, in appreciation of this honestly and properly. It reveals also further slash hyper simultaneously. We reveal there are three distinct identities of volume as itself, not as because it's hyper invisible, but still discernible. but it is relative to how a cell body, cell nucleus, and cell wall slash S is what is as what is conduit, as what is also appreciating water in its elements and gases in their elements as its own quality of diffusion, distinctly, but also simultaneously, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, but also further hyper-simultaneously, because it is showing there is a portion of its identity that is simultaneous, that is only increasing identity of volume. And all exceptions in exception nature come with demonstration slash S of the same thing, such as physical life, and simultaneously, such as where and how. It could have a temporary, concentrated identity of relativity to Earth's special relativity in our own. But in other words, where it has equality, as every body does, to positive and negative equally, except for where we are quality of diffusion, and except for where and how we are quality of relativity to values and value progressions, which are relativity to positive and negative simultaneously too, just like identity is, because everything is a semi-nature relationship to it. But we have been with this through systems other than its own, having to entertain that. You can't afford to be. No one could afford to be, let alone to retract short with convictions proper, even with theory, let alone with convictions with law itself and formally with sciences. In other words, black people, it is time. So we need to act, called the Who Disbelieves Act. So these patients and their criminals, Hartford Hospitals recorded involved with a whole bunch of patients and criminals, intercities connected, and their doctors at the same time, with judges and prosecutors and their family members running into high life progressions, the families of police, of fire departments, and everyone takes it personal, right where and how. The voices need to show that simultaneously recorded, forced to collusions with the hyperforeign. It's not just the foreign involved too, but that's also involved. They're also forging each other's name. Americans forging the names of a Dr. Shamsi Ali, involved with the foreign and domestic family members with Glastonbury, Connecticut, connected to a Mike Pandolf, who will tell you he was recorded. He was influenced to plant evidences with foreign and domestic intelligence and people out in Central Connecticut State University involved with intercampuses, planting evidences, all sides of criminal and civil cases too, with interbranch at the same time and foreign collusions with all sides, names all sides and their lawyers and the crime scenes and next to them. They have roles with that on all sides of my high school, all sides of the campuses I went. And there were time use slash estimate. Increasingly, a Joe DeMoro and a John DeMoro and a Paul DeMoro were verbally confirmed. I never had a conversation here with him in real life in my life. John DeMoro has roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, bad things against little kids. There might be, I don't know if he has roles with taking kids away, making them disappear. But also that he has roles with judges, family members involved with stuff like that. A Mike Delafero and a Chris Delafero are the only two of their names I know. They were influenced to plant evidences and make it look like they knew me. In other words, tied to that, I never had a class with them. They have other brothers and people involved with them all along Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices, all along the South State Highway and their roles with names along the Rome Turnpike. And there are also roles with increasingly people involved with the Phil Cololo, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, proven, first forced, involved also with medical and sexual offenders of kids at the same time with the judges and prosecutors, like ones that's involved with the confessions of a father of a Mike Del Ferro and a Chris Del Ferro, who also lied about themselves and others with my neighbors, and they influenced people with the name Spada too. And people on the street are increasingly involved with people I didn't have classes with at all. And people I did have classes with didn't communicate with at all. And people had like 1 or 2 words with, they changed what I say. These are increasingly people attached to me to fake, change communications with everyone around me, including my family members, including with WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. And then they're simultaneously pretending it's not true as torture roles, extortion, slavery roles. And I won't blame that for that if they get them on paper. Let's get the Roger Susanna on paper. And they're increasingly being used by foreign countries in overt criminal enterprises involved with the same names, where they're putting their kids as their motivations, right into the news articles, too, that they've been faking. A Mark Violet and a Chuck Casper and others along Ridge Road with involved with the Mazzucato family have roles with former director of the FBI, if they know it or not. And his co-defendants involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and me, people that act outside campus, putting kids in fake ties to other kids, fake natures of ties to other kids, and fake motivations for it when they are around them, including with people from other areas involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders through time, and relative vertical and horizontal confessions. Because people make confessions horizontally. And it's a whole bunch of confessions at once. Like where and how, for example, they have, was just simple to discern. The sources of black and white female judges are collusions with some KKK themed, Confederate flag themed, Los Solitos themed, Afghani themed, Korean themed, Pakistani themed, Italian themed, and more. Collusion/S with differences rackets, and note the KKK black and white female judges and switching names at the same time. There are differences rackets going here. And increasingly, these are people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, lying about himself and others. A Joshua Stryker. I never had a word of conversation with him. And I changed up a little bit, I made it like when I described it on Facebook, because they already told me they were on Facebook. They communicate other than they're pretending. There are readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. I'm not saying he knows it or not, I don't know. But people involved with the World Trade Center attack demonstrated a whole bunch of people tied to a Joshua Stryker is involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, intercities through time, and with people on New Britain Avenue in Hartford and Wethersfield. And it's involved with the Hartford courts and their family members associated with Eric Burgess and his request for help. And then demonstrations of the involvements of Dean Judd and his kids involved with sequence shifts and recording things after recording other things. As people involved also stacking falsified police reports and on campuses filmed 24/7, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties, and transcripts between peoples and transcripts, and relative to their roles with whole predicate acts methods used to keep the relative possession/hyper possession over the identities of the sciences therefore of their departments manifest too, distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper simultaneously, too, right, where nature shows us the difference between the value of ground as itself and or ourselves, but where and how it's showing us that part of itself that is only positive onto all parts of itself, temporary / lasting one way, or that a special difference is forced from here. Least of high D's per science, which can be used to show that this is most probably and more probably what the science of ancient pantheism had been about. And it being functional to the republic for which we stand, but only properly when it being led by the hyper invisible but still discernible, which appreciated exceptions and exception nature that would not and could not be the republic for which we stand, and care for exceptions, exception nature, the way we, at the same time, except for one way. And that's what brought the republic for which we stand to the entire species body before it became criminally foreign influence. But everyone appreciating, the only reason they came there is because, in other words, they're being led by the hyper invisible but still discernible. And the more that we get good at doing that, what is true always, not denying the slightest detail, not denying the order of the finite. When I say not denying the slightest detail, too, I mean, like not relative to the questions of prosecutors and judges that are recorded originally and still worse than criminally incompetent regarding what witch trials are about, which is simultaneously, which was about those laws that had slavery entrenched distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies. This breaching method measures opinions and the arrays of them and their counters to each other, that difference used to hide behind and through it regarding what the Civil War was about. The Civil War was about James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, and that plan that George Washington agreed to use and to force the other founders to be. I'll see, vaccines. Now let's get them onto paper, unabridged, and discern where and how we need to value, where and how and why we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And there are abridgments that have been exploiting roles with that. The differences between the formal law names, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the news names next to that, the crime scenes next to them, that was sustained. That difference rolls with that, use of that, collusion. And then it made collusions worse, right where it could show them at other locations they need to hide that from their roles with it in the past. Then active, and then increasingly to come, it shows them too. It's a method that perfected self-cultivated roles with what it propagated only allowed. It was capable of making Native Americans fight with Native Americans. And it sustained that and uses of those effects and measured and maintained roles with itself. Otherwise, that body was sensed, including if it was majority of people, including if it was everyone. And then, the way we know it, told to us. But we also know that they left out criminal foreign influences, criminally foreign influence database relationships and roles with criminally foreign influence re-engineerings of the republic for which we stand, with postures of integrity that our founders never told us to let stand in their name, never to leave us their words, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out the breaching method that had everyone's words measured and maintained collusion slash S to an extent, or that body was incensed, including if it was a majority of people, and it and everyone around them was hurt. That's forced by nature itself upon the breaching method. That is a method that knows too everything it did and does, even though it does it through ourselves. Nature is going to continue to demonstrate that. That's why it's important to understand and pay attention to how it from the beginning, from before modern religious messengers. We know there was sick law. We know there were abridgments of the sciences. See, everyone you spoke about principles leaving out black people's whites of eyes and a breaching methods reemployments of that and nature's demonstrations of it. They left it out because those demonstrations, it simultaneously employed them, measured and maintained, roles with itself, blaming other things other than ourselves or ourselves as the names of ourselves, as the phenomenon of the names of countries and their colonial and semi-ancient forms. Their ancient forms, not A through Z could afford discern, could afford to be, let alone to protract short words, appreciating this identity of hyper simultaneous nature. That is not us and it's not the other species' bodies, but it is anyway to show us itself, not just ourselves, but itself, the identity of all space slash existence. Therefore, ye, vaccines, I teach us things, but long. We can put down right now all kinds of different YouTube videos better than free. What all these companies will charge and stuff like that. And in other words, so we fix these countries. We don't play games, change and fake what people say. Judge Donald Trump, I heard somewhere in the clip of it, I don't know where it is. He said that he was on the phone even with Saudi Arabia trying to get help with the world. The world's leaders are incapable of helping because locations, areas, and states had campuses criminally foreign influenced specifically to keep other things other than themselves blamed for that criminal foreign influences because it came from a hyper criminal foreign influence. You guys can't afford the quality of fact cheaping nature. That right, just with the simple, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only right here defend. You guys can't defend. You guys want to pretend to defend. Oh, I know this part of the book, this part of the book. Doesn't say that. It says only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together in the part before it. You guys have delusions at the same time. Then you pretend people have hate speech. You have collusions with that. All kinds of fake and changed transcripts roles, forging them. Whole bunch of different countries involved with Harvard Hospital and security and intelligence with them, foreign and domestic, long term with Demoral's Market next to them, long term with IL's Kitchen. I never had a class with Demoral or Joe Aiello. Demoral, one time he came with one class in one day in my 5th grade class with a Mr. Pruzzi, which is a 5th grade. There were people when I was in 2nd and 3rd grade and 4th grade. And one of the kids in my 4th grade class has ties to body dumping spots. His neighbors do. But through their roles with other natures of wire crimes involved and falsified police reports and federal crimes with kids and elderly and veterans' homes, has something to do with their roles with foreign and domestic families all along Route 3 and Route 175, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with news at the same time, and whiting forensics increasingly. But this is interstates. Forgiveness is because to discern anything properly, let alone black people's whites of eyes and the motivations of it for roles with it, also recorded hyper-evidentially. See, people use words like evidence. The breaching method showed them they were to use words like evidences, control. And in other words, see, we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And see, they are haven't been ignored. And roles with that, needs with that, natures of that, in other words. the breaching method assigned the black and white, all exceptions, to play those differences against themselves while making them unity as best they could. Roles through itself too. Because that's what it needs to be seen through. The side it needs to be seen through. Relative to where and how to. We have suits and ties, counters, exceptions. Can't debate that legitimately. Because they can't debate simultaneously how the suburbs were designed for the torture, extortion, and slavery of our founders. And sickly distinctly. And so too it could measure and maintain how sickly non-distinctly it was an affront and a torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone. But everyone would leave that value out and speak for value anyway. As systems tactical from the one that uses how we are relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, as values are. And with the quality of diffusion that is also interactive and progressive. In other words, its way. But now we have been systems tax military from its own, as only one little species body, and for so long. But the whole sea is polluted with plastic. All fresh water. Fresh water has forever chemicals in it. It's underground. It's denatured a whole bunch of other ways at the same time. In other words, worms are no longer even in the soils anymore. Excuse me. This is the soil too. Earth was like a living body, a quality of diffusion. When it would rain, there would be no more bugs on top of the water for the fish. So the worms and the healthy soil would walk into the healthy ponds. And it would always be. And the words, there's rain, the birds are hungry still. But the worms are coming up from the ground. While the bugs are no longer there like usual. No, but vaccine. The suburbs were designed for America's founders were born with the torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone entrenched northern and southern colonies, southern colonies. The only way to debate that and get away with it is to self-value. The sciences and the campuses, the A through Z, including fire and medical campuses, have been collusion, self-value roles with from off those locations, on and off all of them, hyper additional collusions. Also with lying about what they think when people say about it. Because on a mass scale, there are styles changing and faking anyone's words who speaks about the predicate acts, even if they don't use that word. Method with other communicated for nature than it communicates. Many have said, and even thought and believed to themselves honestly, that something wouldn't be natural. It wouldn't be if it wasn't natural, like slavery. See, because there was criminal incompetence left out, how there's criminal, some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. Nature shows us. Some people only ask questions to keep other things, others, ourselves, blame for what and is really insidiously at each shadow. They've been planting evidence on all sides of the campuses. This is recorded, but it's also recorded in the form of people intercities, all sides of cases, and the people with the courts themselves, family members and news. Why and how they were motivated to put the same sequence shifts, same collusion /S. There's mass data racketeering, and then they have to hide it out of the locations. Think about how long could you leave out the breaching methods roles with reassigning black and white? How long could you keep it blamed on other things, others, yourselves? Until using all exceptions, because once you sustain doing that, then you start making it true. And the difference of it, rules with the difference cover up with the breaching method. Forgiveness is is to not change anything and not to leave out the breaching method, which is inseparable from all instances and names, just as the name of the identity of all space slash existence. In other words, if you don't want, in other words, let's get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. If they want to be treated as victims slash hyper victims who responded wrongly as predators because they didn't know any other way, and relative to this when they were kids, there are people that are making placements in classrooms and measuring where people are going to walk relative where the fault, that's right where they are victims slash hyper victims and don't even realize it's them. Some ways the most criminally influenced. Some ways it's overt criminal enterprises actually. Some ways it's private ones. Some ways it's the news, the names next to them, their neighbors, the next to the parks they go to, at the parks they go to, the town offices, the election spots, every campus. The difference of that was is used remotely. This is the hyper evidential having Black people's right to life protected to us by the identity of space slash existence. While it is showing us other species' bodies are distinct from ourselves, but also non-distinct and simultaneous, but also for that further hyper simultaneous. We must once again, humanity, resurrect pantheism, not as a religion, but as a science that goes with religions. So as a religion with religions, with multiple names, but being led by that which is actually true always. That which is actually hyper invisible, but still discernible conjunction slash S to all things, and also positive onto itself, which it gives us a method to check. Well, real invention. See, we already have the means. We already have the scientific know-how to make on a mass scale better than cheaper than we charge ourselves in time and everything. Even the cost of lives. We can build a beautiful. More energy can be created and saved, and nature gained out of that nature capable of caring for and appreciating evolution's factory nature development, not relative to inventions physically. There are hardly any worms in the soils anymore. The suburbs were designed tactically to nature before America's founders were born. There are self-valued roles with uses of their words, also singularly used. But that's with and how. There are collusions from the peak to the bottom. All exceptions are relative to where and to how. Individual voices are prevented use slash S of anger. And or how they get away with it, which is each year of everyone's life. Increasingly, people are putting fake things in databases and fake motivations for it. Increasingly, there is acting tied to that. There are the intelligence, foreign and domestic, here and there. There are constantly putting arrays of people and setting up instances and lying about even to themselves, and while delusions wrought about why and how they're telling people to do things. And time, wait, he's gonna come jogging by right here, and you say that. In other words, they're covering up what came first. Increasingly, people tied to mayors have been planting evidences at parks and next to them, and at campuses, and with people involved with proven years apart first forced child abusers, leaders of the kids, and more recorded then and now involved. The FBI and other agencies and a Joe DeMauro recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed they have people involved with people with the name O'Connor. And there are two, there's a mother and daughter. There are mother and daughter principals with the name O'Connor. Recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed involved further with some upskirt natures with a principal and further with the social media with the Joshua Julian and with my neighbors and Mark Violet and others with Hartford Hospital with his brother and with people next to the Hartford Hospital through time at the houses and the businesses and the people with the news reports on it and social media. They have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and Weathersfield police wire crimes and switching names and making confessions also where they have communications racketeering roles. Also with the news at the same time to prevent voices. They are preventing and having prevented writing. Increasingly, a Leahy family attached me to fake conversations with themselves, with the judges and prosecutors and victims advocates, also involved with a whole bunch of with the crime scenes and with people at the state capitol and next to it, increasingly involved with this Mark Violet, with others, with a Rick Cianfaglione, uh, with people next to Fox Connecticut News, like Mendez police families, intercities involved with wire crimes with Fox Connecticut News and Weathersfield Police Department and campuses and all sides of criminal and civil cases, and people that are also been planting evidences on all sides of my house and all sides of their house. Also with he said, she said, racketeering worse than war crimes and uses of knowledge of good and evil by the names of the people of sciences relative to where and how they have the religious locations and sense and sensibilities and their apparent and with their pretended motivations, like what someone said before that on Facebook. Well, that's why they're making confessions and demonstrations about the roles with body dumping spots. Like increasingly, people tied to a South to and as a South Sibiella involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, trying to make fake exceptions of knowing me. I never had a conversation with him at all. He has roles with state police all along Hangdog Lane and people all along to our highway where they run into each other in the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. All along that are intelligence people associated with people in my fourth grade class, also people with the name Warren. I never had anything but positive for these people, and all they were influenced to pretend passion because that's how I know. And I never had anything interact. That's how I know they're being influenced to lie about what they think about me. And with the news, it's also recorded that we're influenced the news, and with the news intelligence, the differences of the news intelligence or the ones next to them. That's also haven't been used remotely. Why at the same time with a whole bunch of different countries involved with those same names. So we have military associated with a Mark Violet, a Justin Kovinskis, and a Kerr family, and the extended family of a Kalo. I don't know if a Kalo is in the military, but he has a roommate from Newington involved with him intercities and people from Glastonbury, like with the name Scalora, and people like the teachers involved with the World Trade Center attack that forced Saudis to collusions with them, with their sons, like the son of a computer class teacher I had, who begged me to take that class, and he told me to lie about that too, and then he lied to make it look like there's a debate. They're lying about things with Glastonbury Intelligence. Him and his wife, I don't even know their names. And because there were some others, a Detective Samuda, and there's a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, and various Hartford courts and the Britain Superior Court and Connecticut District Court people. They're also involved with a target at the corner of where there's the conjunction between New Britain and West Hartford, with the New Britain Superior Court and Connecticut District Court and Hartford courts had predicate acts there, and with people in that area. The leasing agents are involved in their cities with people that were involved with child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, to have also been attaching the kids to fake ties, fake natures of ties to other kids, and putting fake things into databases at the same time. Increasingly, it's concentrated roles with mayors and people tied to mayors and their family members. I believe it was in my fourth grade class when there was a Julie Morin. And I only had, I was only fond of her and my other classmates. I had no problems with the people in my fourth grade class. In other words, only times I ever had problems at kids at campus was like shortly, and it was concentrated right before there was a Earth Day years ago. Has something to do with former Mayor Gold, but also 1 year before that. And then concentrated timed collusion with that, increasing at other locations with other names, with confessions and demonstrations out of nowhere. Also, as people with that, as the at next to the state education department, involved also with a John DeMoro is involved with Manchester Through Time and East Hartford people and people at the state capitol and all along Park Street, involved on off the state corrections offices and the judicial branch offices, planting evidences at and next to shopping centers, at and next to malls, interstates, people with the World Trade Center attack. I recorded, confessed, and demonstrated collusions with the John DeMoro, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with middle school kids and grammar school kids, with foreign and domestic intelligence, attaching themselves to fake ties, fake natures of ties to strangers they don't know at all. Then they're making fake exceptions after the sequence and hiding their roles with that. Increasingly, too, people planting evidences. People are being directed to make fake sides of issues, and they're making instances, treatments, and then they're at the same time speaking about things like mental health and medicines. There are all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with judges and prosecutors involved with countering such that are originally and still increasingly involved with people with body domestic spots at the same time involved with federal evidences crimes with them. Increasingly, people tied to a Sal Saviello and a Richard Dombrowski and their roles with Tiger Cubs and Cub Scouts, has foreign and domestic intelligence involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake exceptions of people knowing each other. Also with a Joshua Julian, I don't know at all, who was pretending other. Daryl Chandler, I only know, sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm he has criminally foreign influence roles with people from all these different countries and with his educators with predicate acts. Fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to me. And their roles with switching names and forging names with people on all the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices and with the police departments intercities. He's got roles with people in Newington Police Department with the name D. Simone, also brought up by people at Hartford Hospital, increasingly involved with people in the Britain campuses, involved on all sides of it with predicate acts, with the names involved also at and next to Hartford Hospital. And the difference of that, they're putting fake conversations with people through the mail. They're forging names of other doctors. They have their patients and criminals run in with their security and all themselves and their lawyers, putting the same fake things in transcripts. These are the same people and people tied to them. They're running into as people next to campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with forensics locations. So you have all the identities of law incapable of having discerned. All that is discernible when you appreciate what nature communicates, what nature shows us with its body, projecting to us why and how we have the same color eyes in different color eyes at the same time, distinctly from the other species bodies. Not distinctly, but also simultaneously / hyper simultaneously, for that, not them nor us. And the breaching method is left out at the same time. When we appreciate that simultaneously, we can appreciate, we can discern other things other than ourselves are being communicated, not just for America's founders, but for nature itself. And there are styles pretending not to realize, like pretending people, what's your evidence? I have black people as whites of eyes, what's my evidence? Etc. Black people. Yeah. Time is time. Yeah.